Hey guys, Brett here with the Insurance Nerds Attachment Point News Roundtable. Just wanted to check in with you, say happy holidays, and on today's episode we have Lance Poole and John Stevenson in Juniper Labs. They're working on an open source data project for commercial insurance underwriting, to help with the $40 billion of fraud that hit the industry every year. A lot of cool potential, a lot of cool conversations around the project here. Got Nick Lamparelli on as well. It's kind of fun getting him into the convo. But again, happy holidays. Thanks for joining us and look forward to catching you later. This is Brett with the Attachment Point News Roundtable. We're excited to talk to the guys from Juniper Labs, Lance Poole and John Stevenson. And we actually got to hang out this week. So this is usually it's a digital recording, but we got to hang out in person, chop it up a little bit. Now here we are trying to pretend to be professional after some wine and cheese in Denver. So Come on, guys. How are you doing today?
Doing good.
Heck yeah.
Oh, and there comes Nick. Nick is
he's joining in. Nick Lamparelli himself jumping in. Yeah, then you guys hung out quite a bit in Denver, which is cool. Yep. So, Nick, how you doing, sir? We're recording. We're live. We're in. Uh-oh. I think you might be muted, Nick. This is live recording. This is what we got to deal with here. You know what I mean?
Really?
Got to take the flaws and everything.
Nick, you're on mute. It's the first time it's ever happened that someone's been talking and been on mute.
I think he's good. Oh, wait. Let's see if I can unmute him. He's unmuted. Oh. I'm not going to touch anymore. Uh-oh. We may have to restart this. This is right.
Wait, say something, Nick. No.
Say Juniper Labs is the best InsurTech startup there is.
Juniper Labs is the best InsurTech startup there is.
Hey! It is live.
Oh my gosh.
Technology.
Right?
Say the magic words,
Unlock the audio. It's like waking up Siri.
Yeah.
What's the acronym? JLITI.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Right?
Christmas, New Year's, Hanukkah.
Kwanzaa.
Everybody.
When was Hanukkah? We already passed Hanukkah? It's rotating. It's a lunar calendar. It's very confusing.
What's funny is I can see the Golden Gate Bridge from way over here.
There you go.
I would put my green screen on, but my room has become the mounting. It's the launch pad for all gifts Christmas.
And you got little kiddos, so you get to have a ton of fun.
I have boxes and stuff all over the place.
There you go. I actually got to hang with these guys this week, Nick. So all of us have actually met in person, and we're recording digitally right now. This is quasi a first, And
But have you seen the bowling alley?
I've not seen the bowling alley. We had to leave something for the next round. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I bowled a 200.
Oh, what?
No, I'm just
double
kidding.
what a good game is for me.
I suck. But it was fun.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, guys, welcome on. And Nick and I have had the pleasure of kicking around some ideas with Juniper Labs. I don't know if you guys want to break down what you're up to a little bit. It's fun stuff. It's exciting times.
Yeah, happy to talk a little bit more about what we're doing and some of the cool things we're up to. So, just on our backgrounds, I'm an actuary, John's underwriter turned data scientist. So we're very much focused on data underwriting as it relates to commercial insurance. So a couple of fun things we have going on. One, we just kicked off this open data project where we're taking 40 million records, open sourcing that. Really, I think our goal is to try and displace Dun & Bradstreet. So if we do our job 10 years from now, that organization looks different.
Abraham Lincoln worked for him. It's time, man. Their time's due. It's been a while.
That's right. So open data is a big part of our story. And then on top of that open data set, we're building really interesting data pre-fill, data classification, business classification technology. So it's like this data as a platform play, and then all kinds of interesting tech that we're building on top of that.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, can you talk about what you saw as the opportunity? Like, how did you? I know for Lance, you didn't actually come from insurance. You came from the more of the fintech side of stuff. So, what made you take the leap? What did you see, and how did you guys mentally calculate what the potential opportunity was?
Yeah. So I was running a mortgage tech startup. I mentioned actuary by training, spent a lot of time in insurance, then was in the mortgage world, and really just saw there was a lot of opportunity with carriers to make improvements, to enhance their process, things, move even slower in insurance than they do in mortgage. And so for us, it was like there's lots of kind of leakage in the system. There's lots of opportunity for us to make things more efficient, and it's something that we know pretty well. So that's the kind of piece that got us interested and compelling. And then two, I think we both like really believe in the product too. I mean, it's like enables all sorts of commerce to exist because insurance is out there. So at some level, it like kind of comes back to we believe in the product, think it does good. More people need to have it. It needs to be cheaper. Those things.
Yeah, I would just add to that some background, underwriter for a handful of years, and then moved into the data and analytics space within commercial insurance context. The real thing that was compelling for me about this, having built several of these solutions in-house for insurance companies, is the fact that data acquisition is happening all over the place, but in this kind of fragmented fashion, right? Wherein every insurance company is building their own little data pond that is growing stagnant each day, and there's no implicit mechanism for those being utilized, being validated, and the end result of that is everyone in that situation loses, right? The insurance carrier loses, the insurance agent loses, and most importantly, the insurance customer loses from this fragmented approach to how data is stewarded within the industry. And so within that, not only is there an opportunity for improvement to customer service, reduction of fraud, all of these various things, but there's also a massive value creation opportunity for every single member in that value stream.
I mean, I'd like to give like a little story of, when Lance was telling me what it was that you guys were doing, I kind of immediately latched on. I'm more of a property guy, but I did spend a year in predictive modeling, and I think almost entirely that year was focused on casualty business, auto and workers' comp. And to kind of explain it to the audience, what I saw was broken immediately. I just became a head scratcher was the workers' comp part, because there's no it's not finely segmented, the market. So you get these classification codes. One, it's you get a complex commercial entity like a hospital, and it's difficult to figure out who's doing what and where are they doing it, because now hospitals have different they have their main hospital, then they might have a facility a few towns over that's affiliated with that particular hospital. But when we started digging in more, it was just like, well, wait a second. These hospitals, we're classifying all the doctors under one classification code. But a doctor classification code could be anything from a radiologist that is exposed to potentially radioactive material or high frequency X-rays and things like that, down to a man or a woman that's sitting behind a desk that's literally writing prescriptions and has almost no exposure. They're clerical for the most part. And I was just like, wow, there's such a huge opportunity here, because we're grouping them all in this one giant bucket. But man, would it not be helpful to know which sort of doctor they are? And that's just hospitals. You get into construction, almost a lot of lines of business. It would be really helpful to know who's doing what, how are they doing it, how can we potentially micro segment that into something that provides a lot more information about the risk.
Totally. And when you think about the fact that that the nature of work and the future of work is so rapidly evolving, right? All these taxonomies that exist, to your exact point, are reflective of kind of establishment, historical legacy ways of doing work, it's always going to be a lagging indicator, right? Like those breakdowns of classifications, the organizations responsible for those taxonomies are always behind the curve from that point.
Well, and then I'm going to take a quick TV timeout to plug the new Ask Kodiak t-shirt.
The sponsor.
I was
Nice.
saying before we recorded, I was like, I got an InsurTech for the apparel, not the money. What it kind of reminds me of, Nick, is Rethought getting hyper competitive on flood by getting granular in the information and going down to the foundation, foot by foot, inch by inch. You're talking
So why can't why can't you do that in casualty? Nobody does that in casualty. It's like such a
that's we talked about this, Nick, too. Like, we feel like the way carriers and like way you can make money in this industry is you take on things that look like a bad risk, but actually are really good risks. So it's like there's this Venn diagram overlap, and that's the sweet spot. It like looks like a terrible risk, but actually it's a good risk, because that's the risk that other people want to underwrite. And the way you can convince yourself it's a good risk is based on that granularity, is based on that data, and seeing that. Whereas other people look at that and be like, yeah, I'm not going to touch that. We can help enable carriers or someone else to write the business by saying this is a good risk.
Well, to your point, like the fires in California, where there was a fire, nobody wants to write it, but there's nothing left there to burn right now. So
right,
great
point.
Yeah. But the way the industry normally works is, Brett, they're not going to sniff that area for a while. But that's what they should be going after. And I see a lot of the InsurTechs when they come in, when they pitch to me, they're specifically talking about, hey, we can help you find the low risk stuff. And it's like, well, of course I want the low risk stuff. Nobody's going to turn their backs to that, but I don't want to actively fight for it because everybody else wants that too. There's no margin there. So really the sweet spot is, can you find the the stuff that looks like high risk but isn't really high risk? Right. That's where all the margin is, because not only are you creating a market for that, there's very few competitors. So there's potentially a ton of margin there.
And then also with those things that seem like low risk, there could be little black swan events too, where you think it's simple, and then all of a sudden some anomaly comes up.
Of course, we underwrote a retail business up in northern Vermont, northern New York. They gave us a list of locations. Some were in flood zones, some were not in flood zones. They were currently buying coverage for only the buildings that were in the flood zones. And we found a couple of locations in northern Vermont that had more flood risk than all of the exposures that were in flood zones combined. Wow. This one location, but it wasn't in a flood zone.
Yeah.
And it's like, you need to be buying flood coverage for this property now, where the prices are cheap, before they finally figure out that you're in a pretty bad zone. So yeah, I think it does go both ways.
So were you guys thinking with Juniper, by staying open and by carriers sharing data or companies sharing data, it's just better overall for the insurance landscape? How do you guys fight people thinking it'll help them miss competitiveness? Or maybe do you feel like the people involved in your web will be the most competitive people and they'll kind of win together?
Yeah.
If you're going open.
Yeah, I mean, I think, John can jump in too. For my part, we feel like there's no shortage of opportunity here. So we don't want to operate with kind of a scarcity mindset.
Right.
We have an abundance mindset. There's so much opportunity in this space that if we create an open platform, we'll have a more effective data, lake, data pile than anyone else would just on their own. I mean, there's others, InsurTechs in the industry, that have basically said, hey, the value we have is the value of our data. And we're starting out, relatively early company. We've been around 6 months. There's people that have, years and years of head starts ahead of us. We're not going to get a better data set than them on our own, but as a community, we feel like we can get to somewhere greater than what we could just do on our own. And we'll, I think we sit back and we say, if we can unlock billions of dollars of value for this industry, then there'll be, Juniper Labs is going to be in a position to capture some of that value. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we think about it right now, but John would be interested.
I'd say two things. One, as Lance already mentioned, like we're trying to rather than see data as a product, see data as a platform, right? We think that what the way that true value creation happens is not in selling the same warmed over records that have been acquired from from the Secretary of State or what have you, but in fact the insight that can be built, integrated, seamlessly infused into the insurance value stream, like that the way that value creation happens is through that building on top of that platform, right? And then the second thing I'd say is what I mentioned earlier about the fact that it's not actually value creating to have a bunch of individual data ponds, right? Wherein the each disparate carrier, broker, whomever has to kind of retain and manage their own thing. It's actually value destroying. And there are folks who are whose model is like, hey, we can sell to all these, that those are in number of customers. Our way of thinking about it is that we all win when there is a persistent, accurate, verifiable data source that everyone has an incentive to keep accurate and up to date. But the way that you do that is you don't try to take ownership of that, right? You don't try to keep that behind a wall, right? So it's like, it's a weird thought, and to be honest, like it's a kind of a mind-bending approach for us as we've had to kind of think out the implications, as Lance said, of that abundance mindset rather than that scarcity mindset.
Yeah, we feel like we want to be in a position where, like, if everything we present is if everyone's like, this is a great idea, you guys, this is amazing, like, then we're probably missing something. We want to, we feel like there'll be times where someone's going to say that's a bad idea. You shouldn't do it that way. So this is one of these things where it looks like a bad idea, but we feel like it's actually a really good idea. It turns out it actually could just be a really bad idea.
I think what I like about it is you're sort of democratizing the lower layer, and you're saying, what special things can we do on top? What additional services can we sell? How can we be artful in this information that should be common?
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, it's just raising the base.
I mean, I fell in love with the idea because, you guys at Juniper, I think you sort of nailed it. Like it's an endemic problem. It is value destroying because at every stage, whether it's agent broker, up to potentially MGA, up to carrier, up to reinsurer, and then beyond, it's like they're all redoing all of the same work. They're trying to recapture all of the same information. Totally. And so if you're a data vendor, you're kind of salivating because it's like I can get a license fee for all of those. But what am I trying to say here? It's like it doesn't create any efficiency.
And it kind of misses
in the
point
process.
Of if we're trying to help each other out.
Well, maybe they're not trying to help each other out. Maybe that's their goal. But I see, like, I think a lot of folks will look at the open data, that bottom layer, and just say, well, there's no value there. And I disagree. There may not be venture value, but there absolutely is. There absolutely is value there with the community that gets generated, and being part of that. To layer on business intelligence and predictive models and other stuff on top of that, where you're now taking crude oil and refining it to something that you can actually combust and drive a car or whatever, like that's the value there. Like that, to me, it's just like you're basically creating a seed out of generosity, but knowing that, hey, listen, if you want it, take it. But if you want more, it's going to take a little bit more work, and we're here for you, type of thing. To me, I think the closest thing would be like a Red Hat, type of business model. And given what you said about the value destruction, it's like that makes a lot of sense that someone would come in and just open source that part of it and just layer their true value-oriented technology on top of what is now a commodity.
And it's potentially creating a new ecosystem too. They're trying to guard us from office construction right now. So don't feel too bad, guys. We'll hear a little background noise. It's all good. Yeah, it's potentially creating a new ecosystem. It's a new playing field for people to develop things on and enhance features and whatever else. Getting people out of silos.
Yeah,
Cool.
Nick, the point that you made about that layer and whether or not that's like a venture layer or not, I do think it is kind of this weird mindset where as a startup you have to like the framework is 100% of the value that we create we need to be able to turn around and monetize in some fashion. And it's like, well, what if we were like more focused on creating a massive amount of value for which we know that we're only going to be able to capture a small part, and that's okay, and that's actually like a really good thing. And actually, if there were more companies like doing that, espousing that mindset, like that would actually make for a more flourishing way of thinking about any given industry.
Yeah.
I love it.
Not trying to capture the whole pie. I just think insurance is coming together to create good, to protect each other, to add value, to help the wheels of society keep turning. And that openness, I don't know if it's like protecting individuals, protecting companies and families. Obviously, it's going to be competitive. I don't know if it needs to be competitive in the classic sense.
Right.
What sort of conflict exists between you two, given that you have the actuary who's experience-based, always looking in the rearview mirror in order to create their models. Then you have the data scientist who's forward-looking. Man, you guys must really duke it out sometimes.
Well, sometimes the truth is I wasn't a very good actuary. That's why I'm running tech companies and
we're from the South, so we're very nice to each other's faces.
Right. Nothing that a little bit of whiskey can't solve from the South.
Exactly.
Or a little bit of barbecue.
I honestly think like the actuarial societies or whatever, if you look at the individual actuaries, obviously highly technical, skilled people who I think really love the movement into the predictive models and the data science, the big data, the forward-looking stuff, but I think are prohibited by their organizations from actually doing anything about it. So they're kind of handcuffed.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, no, I mean, being inside an insurance company is often a difficult place to innovate, make change, all that. But you bring up an interesting point in terms of like that being handcuffed, and I think the reason why those functions are sometimes handcuffed with respect to the tools and solutions that they're able to build is because there's a heavy, and rightfully so, emphasis within the industry on transparency and explainability. And I think that's another virtue of an open data focus is if we're all in on kind of showing our work, right? If we're all in on showing how we got to this particular piece of insight, then that actually creates an opportunity for someone in that position to have more confidence as to how to build a risk selection model or an underwriting or pricing model that may not be previously available.
I wonder if it might sort of peer-to-peer raise everybody's level of activity as well. Because if you kind of see what each other are working with, it's a little bit less of you have your own home cooking and then everyone else does their thing. It's a little more how to get better together, and then
totally, absolutely.
Super interesting.
I mean, so that's a good point, Brett. There's two monetization mechanisms, right? One is, okay, here's the bottom data layer, right? That people are pumping data in, taking data out, create a community around that, and then there's your piece, which is the business intelligence and other layers on top of that. But then also the lubrication part, where if others want to build those business intelligence layers, you can create the framework around that. It's like, hey, you're an actuary, right? For some insurance company, it's gonna take forever for you to get a license for this data. We'll give you the data for free. Oh, you want to create a model? Well, here are some tools that we've built for you. Go create your model.
Oh yeah, third parties could build and sell those tools. No, it's just an exciting thing about even third parties building and selling those tools or formulas.
Yeah, that's sort of what I meant. Yeah. They help build models that can then get added into the framework of an open source.
Yep. Yeah, I've worked on projects at carriers where it is a multi-month effort working with a traditional data vendor to acquire that data, sanitize, clean, source, ingest, so that we can then start to actually do the modeling piece, right? You know, with it, there's a kind of a joke within, you know, the data science world that 90% of data science isn't data science, right? It's all the data cleaning, data prep.
Yeah.
And so if there's ways in which that those pipes are more readily available, then that facilitates exactly what you were talking about.
That's cool. You mean everything's not in perfectly organized spreadsheets and CSV files that you can dump in and just tabulate?
Wait till Q1 of 2020.
Yeah, there you go. That's funny. With Fineo, I mean, they're trying to integrate. I don't think I'm going too much into the sauce, but yeah, it's not clean what they're trying to plug in with and work with. And, you know, even at some high levels, there's a lot of organizing to do.
I think what's really funny about these stories is that, you know, having been in a carrier, so, you know, we're making humor out of, you know, someone within a carrier trying to get data or get something from an outside company. It's just as hard within the company. It's the same thing. Like I was on a predictive modeling team. It would take months for us to acquire what we needed internally, clean it up, get it ready. You know, 6 months to 8 months to create a predictive model that does, frankly, some of the simpler things, the low-hanging fruit. That's value destructing.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could imagine if we had functionality, if we had tooling that was readily available to do this externally, that tooling could then be applied to your exact point, Nick, in an internal fashion.
And you could almost come up, and I'm just riffing here, but with like a best practices data model where people could thumbprint off the similar setup later. You can almost get a data standard out there through the open source setup.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked a lot about like data standard, data protocol, you know, in a way of creating a data protocol where in the future, maybe as a commercial entity, you could apply for insurance just by the nature of having your data set, your data verified. Data. So, you know, no more Accord form.
What am I going to do with 3/4 of my day? You know, that's funny.
That's right. Yeah. So for us, it's like, you know, we've been to the future, and, you know, Dun & Bradstreet looks different. Accord looks different. You know, these things, like, you know, insurance does move slow, but we believe 5-10 years from now, some of these, you know, kind of monolithic closed institutions, you know, will look different, operate differently because of the value of open data.
It's kind of fun when you are talking about something that should be an inevitability, that the data should be simple, straightforward. You should be able to grab what you want. And then you guys are part of creating that. You're like, oh yeah, it makes sense that that's the way things should be in a couple of years, and you just start doing it now.
Yep.
You know, that's cool. How you doing, Nick? You ready? Any anxiety about Christmas? You mentioned that you're in the middle of like the Christmas kind of construction zone.
It's always stressful.
Would there be any data that would help you out for
any data
for Christmas? Schedule data, present data, feedback on gifts.
Whatever Juniper can provide, I'll take.
But yeah, guys, fun riffing. Don't want to hold you too long today. We'll definitely have to do this again. Any cool news or anything coming up on your guys' schedule that you want to share with us? Or
yeah, I mean, so we're going to begin the launch of the open data set in January. You know, if anyone's interested in being part of the project, they can go to openjuniper.com. We're taking applications there. In that process, you know, we correspond with people that apply and understand how they want to use the data and talk about data exchange, some of those things. So openjuniper.com if anyone's interested. And then there's just all sorts of data projects we have going on that will come out early in Q1 too. So yeah, lots of exciting things happening here.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. How about you, Nick? Anything crazy come up around the corner for rethought for next year?
Nothing that I can announce, but
fair enough.
we have more business than we can handle.
It's a good problem, man. That's awesome. But
flood markets changing dramatically right before our eyes.
Kind of a random one I'm keeping on. CCPA is coming online in California next year too, so that'll be interesting to watch how all that shakes out. So a lot of change in the industry, but I appreciate you guys taking the time in the middle of holidays, and we'll catch you soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.